Bro, are you really about to do a video message in that shirt? What's wrong with this shirt? It's mad wrinkled, yo. Oh, word? Yeah, you're right. This shirt is wrinkly, just like Joe. Who's Joe? All right, so I know it's been a few weeks since we've mentioned moving, but what I really hate about moving is starting all over with the whole friends thing. You know, like after 8th grade, I moved from Boston to Virginia, and it was really tough going into high school being the new kid. And it's not even really, as I think back on it, it's not even really that the people were mean to me. Like most of the people I met in my first few days of school were super chill. I didn't trust them. Moving wasn't hard because other kids kept me at a distance. It was hard because I kept them at a distance. It's like, I felt like I couldn't really trust them. I felt like every interaction I had with them, it was like I was walking into a Joe Mama joke, right? Like I felt like every time I was gonna say something as a new kid that I was afraid that they were gonna embarrass me or humiliate me or make a joke at my expense because I was new. I just didn't trust them. And life is a lot like that, isn't it? Right? That the people we walk with every day basically become our family. There's familiarity, there's trust, there's confidence that they have your best interests at heart. And the people who are new in your life or only step into your life occasionally, oftentimes they feel more like intruders. Maybe they have your best interest at heart, but then again, maybe not. And either way, they aren't your core people. They aren't your ride or die. They aren't your family. And so you do what feels natural. You keep them at a distance. The frequency of someone's presence in your life influences the relational depth that you want to have with them. See, whereas you're usually willing to go deep with people who walk with you every day, you usually keep people at bay if you've only interacted with them every once in a while, or never. Whether you realized before now or not, some of you treat God the way I treated the kids from my high school. God isn't someone you walk with every day. He's someone who pops into your life once a week or once a month. You let him out of his box when you go to church. You let him out of his box when you feel really bad about something you did. You let him out of his box when you need him to do something miraculous in your life. And wouldn't you know it, you and God aren't as close as you'd like to be as a result. You might identify as one of God's children, but being one of God's children, it's not really at the core of your identity. You might do some of the things that Jesus did, but you aren't becoming who Jesus is. You might talk with God occasionally about the important things that are happening to you, but you don't talk with God regularly about the important things that are happening in you. Just like the high priests of the old covenant, you've got God in your box and you only open it up every once in a while. But as we've discovered throughout this series, God doesn't have to be in your box. You're choosing to put him there. And because God isn't someone you walk with every day, your relationship with him isn't nearly as transformative or helpful in your everyday life as it could be. So you want to know what it looks like to let go of the box? Let's talk about frequency. I don't think they had cardboard moving boxes back then, but if they did, Paul would have been extremely familiar with them because Paul was a guy who seemed to constantly be traveling. He would settle down in one city for a few weeks, months, or occasionally years. He'd plant a church and then he'd move on to another city. The only way they could get the guy to stay in one spot for longer than a few years was literally to imprison him. As well connected as Paul was in the known world at that time, we all know how hard it is to establish deep everyday friendships with people when you move all the time. Paul often had a traveling companion or two. He had Timothy at some points in his life. He had Barnabas at other points in his life. Silas was another guy that he traveled with. But generally speaking, Paul's mission of establishing churches and spreading the gospel to the known world made it pretty difficult for him to have a lot of consistent day in and day out friends. So if anyone could benefit from having God as a consistent friend and presence in their life, it was Paul. And that's exactly what he did. In fact, toward the end of one of his letters to the people living in Thessalonica, Paul writes something so outrageous, the people must have thought that Paul's isolation had driven him into insanity. We're in 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Never stop praying. Now, out of all of the demanding, seemingly unrealistic things in the Bible, this one might be the most preposterous. Never stop praying? Like, never? Can you imagine how cold your food is gonna get at dinner if dad literally never stops saying grace?
Oh, Heavenly Father, I thank you for every single molecule in this food, for the monoglycerides, polyunsaturated fats, amino acids, aspartic acids, sucrose, fructose, vitamin D3, vitamin B12.
346 minutes later.
And God, I pray for all of the animals and plants that contributed to this meal. Cows, pigs, goats, chickens, corn, potatoes, daffodils.
3 weeks later.
And Heavenly Father, let's not forget all of the farmers involved in taking care of all of the animals and crops that have provided us with this food today. I thank you for those farmers, Lord. Thomas, Billy, Lenny, Nancy, Randy, Timmy, Ashley, Skippy, Charlie.
That's a good bit. All right, fine. Well, let's not be so literal about it. But, it's probably not start praying when you're born and don't stop until you die. But what does Paul mean then? Honestly, I think the meaning is pretty simple. Talk with God the way you talk with a best friend. Make God that best friend that you bounce everything off of as you go throughout your day. When your teacher gives you too much homework, bring it to God. When you manage to successfully talk to that cute person at school that you like without tripping over your words and being totally awkward, celebrate that moment with God. When you find out that your mom still won't let you play your favorite sport on a team because of the pandemic, ask God to help you sort through your feelings on that. I think we so often think of praying as this serious, formal thing, but prayer is just talking with God, and when we regularly talk with God about stuff that doesn't matter, like homework and crushes and video games, we'll probably talk with him more regularly about the stuff that does, like our feelings and our deep wounds and our sin issues. This isn't that long of a message, and it really isn't that complicated of a message, but I really believe if you started taking this seriously, it would make all the difference in your relationship with God. For some of you, your God box has you thinking that you should only talk to God at certain times and in certain places. That's an old covenant mentality. Having a strong relationship with God in the context of the new covenant means you get to experience the fullness of God's presence with you and in you always as you do the normal things in your day. It means that God is there to laugh with you, to cry with you, and yes, sometimes to gently correct you as you do schoolwork and play video games and learn a new bike trick and interact with friends. So let Jesus do his thing with the Boxcutter. Let go of the box. Let God be someone who walks with you through life. Never stop praying. Here's the point. When you see your relationship with God through the lens of the gospel, you'll walk with God every day. If you are a Christian, you have unlimited access to the God of the universe. You don't have to be afraid of his righteousness. You have no reason to expect his wrath. You don't have to wait for religious times of the year or be in religious places in order to interact with God. That is old covenant stuff. That's God box stuff. And when Jesus came to earth, he came armed with a box cutter. So if you want the kind of relationship with God that changes you and actually affects your everyday life in ways that are beyond what you can even ask or imagine, then you need to let go of the box. We'll see you later.